Welcome back, sailors. This is your captain speaking, and this is the Bruise news. What's going on? Sorry that I don't know why I keep apologizing. It's just, stuff happens, and sometimes there's just not enough to talk about that I want to hop in and immediately do a video, or I kind of wait and see if something gets better. Like, I don't want to put out anything too drab. Like, I want people to really hang on to the stuff that I'm putting out. So I'm trying to make sure that when I do these videos that there's always something good and decent to talk about. And again, I really hope that people start messaging me and they inbox me and all that stuff, and they give me some ideas to for the channel and for the videos that I can make. And I would love to have people on to be able to have discussions about it, and have discussions about whatever sort of area that we can have, because when that stuff happens, it not only brightens the horizon of what we're talking about, but it also adds a little bit of chemistry. And chemistry is important when, you're talking about some things, because, a lot of these videos, well, not a lot of them, all of the videos are based on my opinion solely. So sometimes it's better to not just have my opinion and to have somebody else's, and they can dismantle my argument, or I can do that with them. So that's important to have, it's important to do, and it's something that I would definitely like to see in the future. If somebody would like to give me ideas or talk about things, or even be on it, or on one of the live streams, which I said I was going to do, but I didn't get around to doing either. I haven't really been gaming at all, but that's life sometimes. Anyways, we're going to get on to some Bruise news stuff. There's not much to talk about, but it was just something interesting, and I was actually getting into an argument on Facebook about it earlier, so we're going to get into that right now. So Kenny Florian, he made a comment today, it was just today, about people who he thinks can beat Khabib. He said he believes there are only 3 people that can beat Khabib Nurmagomedov right now in the UFC. I'll explain why I disagree with that after I tell you who that is. So he believes that Ryan Hall, the featherweight, he's kind of a standout featherweight. He's undefeated in the UFC. He's real good off his back. He's got real good cardio. His stand-up's real good. He's an amazing fighter, and he'll probably end up being the featherweight champion at some point. I just don't personally agree with that opinion, but sometimes people can see things a little bit better from better perspective. I'm not sure if he's close with Ryan Hall. I just thought that opinion kind of came out of left field from Kenny Florian. But again, he's a sports analyst, and he was a UFC fighter. So again, his opinion does carry some merit. The second person he said was Justin Gaethje. It's real weird that he said Justin Gaethje, because Poirier is fighting against Khabib right now, and I'm going to, after I talk about this, sort of dismantle why I believe there's no chance that I don't believe Dustin Poirier stands a chance. And if Dustin Poirier doesn't stand a chance, then you have to believe that Justin Gaethje doesn't really stand a chance, because Poirier pretty well beat Gaethje in their fight, and it was a well-rounded fight where lots of stuff happened. Like, there were takedowns from Poirier, there were submission attempts, there was, he outstruck him. So I mean, I don't believe that there was any logic to that. I think that, again, Gaethje is a close person to Kenny Florian, so of course Kenny Florian's going to build him up. The last person was GSP. I think that GSP in his prime could beat Khabib. I just think that there's a lot of variables to that, though. Khabib he's a natural welterweight, so him dropping down to lightweight already gives him a fair advantage against anybody who would be considered smaller than him, because Khabib is very, very strong, and he's a very good grappler. And I said that before, like, when you look at the divisions and the champions, not just today but throughout history, the most dominating champions always have that strong wrestling background, and Khabib is one of those guys who has that really strong wrestling background. He's absolutely phenomenal. So I'll go on to dismantling Kenny Florian's argument right now. First of all, Kenny Florian was never won a championship. He came close to winning championships. That's not true at all. He was dominated in every championship fight he had. I believe he had 2 separate championship fights, one against BJ Penn and the other one against Jose Aldo, and he lost both of those fights pretty cleanly. Like, there was almost no contest. I'm pretty sure that BJ Penn finished him, and I think that Jose Aldo went to decision, but I can't remember at the moment. It's not to say that Kenny Florian doesn't know what he's talking about. He's definitely well versed, but I think that there's a certain level of knowledge that you retain from being inside of it. Like I feel like there's a bit of favoritism coming from Kenny Florian's opinion, and that doesn't necessarily mean, that it that it really means too much. I think that Kenny's opinion on it, it just didn't it just doesn't hold the merit that it needs to. Kenny was never a champion. He doesn't really know what it takes to be a champion because he was never able to do that. He was a great fighter, but he was never a top tier fighter in my opinion. And I think that when you have that and you look at it, no matter how many fights you watch or how many things it goes, when you compete, you have an emotional and physical connection to that. He was an athlete and a fighter, so his opinion becomes skewed on those aspects because he's going to play to favorites, people that he personally likes more, people that he trained more with, and I just don't think it's a valid opinion on that. GSP, on the other hand, being the only pick that made any sense for him, is the only one that I couldn't really argue with, because I do believe that GSP is a better striker, he's larger, he's going to have better cardio, because that's something that I'm going to talk about in a second, is Khabib's cardio. He seems to have real bad cardio, and I'll get to that. But GSP is one of those guys who's just such a strong wrestler. He was so good at holding people down. He had good submissions. He had a good jab. He absolutely dominated everybody that he fought against, aside from people who were much larger than him or people that were on steroids or flukes, because we had that Matt Serra fiasco thing happen. So, in my opinion, I think that the only person right now that comes to mind that could really beat Khabib is Tony Ferguson. And I think that Tony can beat Khabib because Tony is going to outwork Khabib from the moment the fight starts to the moment the fight ends. And I think that his cardio is absolutely insane. He tends to not ever be dominated. He's only ever lost close decisions. I think he really only has the one loss in the UFC, to be honest. And it was a very close decision. I think it was a split decision, and it was against a guy who was a grappler, but we're talking years and years ago, like 6 years ago or something, that 5 years ago that Tony last lost. And Tony's been an absolute monster recently, especially in terms of his ability off his back, his wonky submissions, his striking. He's been absolutely at the top of his game. And with that being said, Khabib's biggest hole in his game is that he doesn't have the cardio. All the pieces aren't there, because when we saw him fight before, it seems like by the third round he starts to gas out. So no, I don't believe that Poirier really stands a chance. I don't think that Poirier he doesn't have the takedown defense. That was the argument that somebody made on Facebook today, was that Poirier's defense, his takedown defense, was wicked. And I was like, what are you talking about, dude? His takedown defense in the UFC is like 66% of takedowns attempted on him, he's stuffed, which is real bad because he has like 22 fights in the UFC, and 11 of those fights, half of his fights were at featherweight. So that means that half of the people, or half of those fights where he was taken down most, because in lightweight there's even more wrestlers, so where he was taken down the most, early on in his career, he was fighting guys who weren't as good wrestlers, and they were smaller than him. So that doesn't mean that he has good wrestling. It's actually the complete opposite. It's very subpar. Dustin does have good cardio, but he tends to try to get into slugfests. And when you sit in the pocket and throw punches like that, you tend to get taken down, and that's what Khabib does. I think that Khabib is even better at holding people down than he is at actually taking them down. But we see that formula happen over and over again. And I think that people can beat Khabib. He's not unbeatable, and I don't think that it necessarily has to be. I think that a lot of the top 5 guys could beat him. But it's about formulating that proper game plan and surviving that barrage that Khabib has. You have to let him tire himself out, and then you have to go at him. You have to wait for him to gas out. You have to have all that cardio on you, and you really got to go from him and win 3, 4, 5, or finish him in those championship rounds. I think that that's imperative to beating Khabib, and I think that that's a good plan, 100%. But it's easier said than done, because I think it's just it's easier said than done because Khabib breaks people. He takes them down and he holds them against the cage or on the ground, and it's tough to get up, and he drops big elbows and big punches. And honestly, he might have the hardest hitting ground and pound in the UFC. So it's easier said than done to be able to do that to the guy, but it's definitely possible. And if I were to train a fighter to go at Khabib and to have that championship fight, that would be the game plan going in, is survive the first 2 rounds, work the body as much as possible when you have the opportunity, survive, protect yourself, and save up all your energy. And then when that 3rd round hits, that 4th round hits, that 5th round hits, that's when you go hard. I want to thank everybody for watching the video. I hope you liked it today. It was a little bit different and it didn't really have any predictions. It didn't really have any news. Well, like a little bit of news, just, Kenny Florian talking about that. What a guy. Anyways, thanks. Can we get some likes, some shares, and some subscribes? Some subs? That'd be great. Thanks, everyone, and make sure you have a great one.